The Ukrainian Armed Forces have halted the Russian spring-summer offensive and are forcing the enemy to retreat on several fronts. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reported this. The Kremlin's plans to seize key areas and settlements are not being implemented and are then constantly revised and postponed. We can confirm that Ukrainian soldiers have stopped the enemy's spring-summer offensive campaign, the General Staff noted. It is reported that the Ukrainian Armed Forces continue to disrupt Russia's future plans by taking asymmetric measures to neutralize the enemy's advantage in personnel and weapons. In certain areas, the defense forces are conducting counteroffensive operations. Ukrainian Armed Forces units are also successfully carrying out assault operations to regain lost ground. Specifically, Ukrainian soldiers continue to drive Russian invaders out of the Sumy region. Active fighting also continues in the Pokrovsky district of the Donetsk region. There have also been some successes in restoring control over territory in the Zaporizhia region. There are also other sections of the front where the enemy has made no progress. Despite the fact that the situation in combat zones remain complex, the enemy does not fully control the strategic initiative. At the cost of enormous losses, the enemy is making minor advances in certain sectors of the front, the General Staff added. In September alone, the occupiers suffered losses of nearly 29,000 service members, destroying or damaging 70 tanks, 65 armoured combat vehicles, over 1,050 artillery systems, 6 multiple launch rocket systems and other equipment. Since the beginning of the year, 2,060 Russian service members have been captured. It is noted that deep strikes on Russian territory have been the most effective method of warfare. Deep strike, for example, destroys the aggressor country's military targets, logistics and energy infrastructure. In particular, since the beginning of the year, 45 facilities in the fuel and energy and military industrial complex of the Russian Federation have been successfully hit by fire. As a result, overall fuel and lubricant production in Russia has decreased by almost 25%. The aggressor country loses over $46 million daily due to the decline in petroleum product exports. The destruction of the enemy's rear resources significantly complicates its ability to conduct active combat operations. According to the General Staff, there are also positive signals regarding the provision of new military aid packages from allies. In particular, the supply of precision-guided weapons, such as Tomahawk cruise missiles and other modern systems, is being discussed. Their use will significantly strengthen pressure on Russia to end the war and establish a just peace.
President Donald Trump said Thursday he will meet again with Russia's Vladimir Putin in an effort to end the war in Ukraine. A date has not been set, but Trump wrote on social media that the meeting would take place in Budapest, Hungary. "I believe great progress was made with today's telephone conversation," Trump wrote after talking to Putin. They previously met in Alaska in August, which did not produce a diplomatic breakthrough. According to Associated Press, before Trump and Putin meet, U.S. officials led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio will sit down with Russian representatives next week. It's unclear where that meeting will take place. The call came ahead of Trump's meeting on Friday at the White House with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenski, who has been pressing Trump to sell Kiev Tomahawk missiles that would allow Ukrainian forces to strike deeper into Russian territory. Zelensky has argued such strikes would help compel Putin to take Trump's calls for direct negotiations between Russia and Ukraine to end the war more seriously.
Syria's President Ahmed al-Sharaa has told Russia's President Vladimir Putin that he seeks to restore and redefine ties with Moscow, a key ally of ousted longtime Kremlin ally Bashar al-Assad. Al-Shara made the statement while meeting with Putin in Moscow during his first state visit to the country that has been hosting al-Assad since his exile from Syria 10 months ago. We are trying to restore and redefine in a new way the nature of these relations so there is independence for Syria, sovereign Syria, and also its territorial unity and integrity and its security stability, Al-Shara told Putin in the Kremlin. The Syrian leader assured that Damascus would honor all past agreements with Moscow. There are bilateral relations and shared interests that bind us with Russia, and we respect all agreements made with it, he said. The Kremlin announced that the talks also covered the future of Russian military bases in Syria. Several days before his visit to Moscow, Ahmed al-Shara emphasized that Syria is not currently interested in a conflict with Russia. However, experts note that the interim president's peaceful statement conceals a cold calculation. Damascus currently holds a significant trump card in its relations with Moscow. Russian military bases in particular, and the continued military presence in Syria in general. Al-Shara understands the importance of this issue for Russia and, as analysts note, may therefore demand significant concessions on certain aspects. According to experts, the interim Syrian president is most concerned about two factors: the funds Moscow can provide for the country's reconstruction and the death of Bashar al-Assad, which Ahmed al-Shara needs to strengthen his authority domestically. Assad, as is known, is currently in Moscow, where he was granted political asylum several months ago. This became necessary after the advance of terrorist organizations, of which the current Syrian leader was one, on Damascus, and the fact that Assad managed to escape then still greatly irritates the new Syrian government, which needs a scapegoat on whom to pin all of today's problems. We maintain close relations with the Syrian people and strive to develop relations with Damascus, and the Joint Government Commission between Russia and Syria will resume its work, Vladimir Putin stated. In turn, Ahmed al-Shara emphasized that the new Syrian authorities intend to reset relations with Russia. The most important thing now, of course, is stability. Stability in the country and in the region as a whole, the country's interim president stated. He added that Syria respects all previously signed agreements with Russia, but seeks to define a new nature for bilateral relations. For Damascus, maintaining ties with Russia is important for rebuilding the war-shattered country and shoring up international legitimacy for the government. In a recent interview with US network CBS, al-Shara said Russia has close and long-standing relations with Syria, which relate to the basic structure of the state and to energy and food, for which Syria depends partly on Russian supplies, as well as some old strategic interests. Russia, for its part, has retained a presence at its air and naval bases on the Syrian coast, and the Kremlin has voiced hope for negotiating a deal to keep the outposts. Moscow has also reportedly sent oil shipments to Syria.